Okay. As I shy. All right, so.
Okay.
The quadratic formula. Once you have it memorized, and the only reason I'm making you memorize this, you don't get a formula sheet for your test. So if you need to use the quadratic formula at any point, you need to have it memorized to use it.
That's crazy.
Okay? You do not get it. So, the B, the A, and the C in the quadratic formula still go back to standard form of the equation. So, the first thing you must have done is it needs to be set equal to 0. That's very important before you plug in anything. So, your x squared terms have to be on one side with your x as well as your constant. Okay? Please pay special attention to your signs. So, if I have a 2 in front of x squared, those 2's replace all of your a's in your quadratic formula. So, we plug in a 2 here and a 2 here. What do you notice about what's underneath the square root? B squared minus 4ac.
It's the standard form. I'm guessing. I don't know.
It's
It's what?
What?
No. What did we do yesterday?
I said it was the thing that we did yesterday. I did a lot of things yesterday.
What's underneath your square root is your discriminant. That number that we got yesterday that told us whether we had 2 real solutions, 1 real solution, or no solutions.
I was talking about that. I think that was the standard form.
Oh, okay. So, b squared minus 4ac, the number that you end up with underneath the square root tells you how many real solutions you're going to have at the end. Okay? If I have a minus 3, okay, instead of a plus for my b, you need to make sure if you have minus that you carry that sign with you. So when I plug it in here, it's a -3, and when I plug it in here, it's also a -3. The sign must carry over. And finally, we're going to make 7 your C value. So that would plug in for your C in your quadratic formula.
You know how many questions on the benchmark would be with this formula?
Okay, so let me tell you this. I'm going to give you tons of ways.
Miss Smith?
Yes, ma'am.
I need Daniel Burrito guidance, please.
Okay. Your last name is Burrito?
She said burrito.
Burrito. We love you, Daniel. We love you, Daniel. Take a pass with me. All right. So, let me show you how this works. If you open up, we're going to do an example here. Okay. What's the first thing you notice that we need to take care of in this equation?
It doesn't equal to 0.
It's not equal to 0, so we need to make it equal to 0. So that -4 that's on the right needs to go to the left. And when that happens, it becomes +4. So we're going to move it over to this side, and it's going to become a +4. So when we go to plug this in, we've got 3x squared minus 4 for my b value and a +4 for my c value.
So the number on the right? The number on the right will become a positive.
When you cross that equal sign, it always has to change signs.
And it'll become the c value?
Mm-hmm. Because your c value is your constant. So now we're going to take this and plug it in. All of my a's are being replaced with a 3. So I'm going to plug in 3. Notice I put it in parentheses. All of my b values are being replaced with -4.
already knows what -4. Do we still have?
Hold on. Do not lose that negative b. Okay, do not lose that negative b. I'm going to show you what happens. Okay, and finally, my c values get replaced with a positive 4.
Doesn't it just change to a positive 4 because they're both negative?
Yes. Okay, so my quadratic formula is negative b. So when I substitute in a negative b, that's a double negative, which Rebecca just said becomes a positive. So this is actually a positive 4. Plus or minus, I now need to figure out what number goes underneath this square root. So you would plug this into your calculator. Just the -4 squared minus 4 times 3 times times positive 4. We need to figure out what number goes underneath the square root. So all you're plugging into your calculator is this. Don't plug in the square root, just plug in the numbers that are underneath of it. I need to figure out what that number is. -32. Okay, -32 divided by, in the bottom I've got 2 times 3, which is 6. Okay, so if my discriminant is negative, that means we have what?
No solution.
No real solutions. Okay, everybody try to plug into your calculator the square root of -32. And tell me what happens.
Second squared.
Yeah, second and your squared button will give you the square root
Of -32.
-32.
I got an error.
It says error.
It says error.
Non-real.
It can't do it because there's no real roots. Your calculator cannot do anything with this. So what happens when you have a negative underneath the square root is this becomes an imaginary number. So watch what I do. Okay. So your first answer, because this is going to break into 2 different answers. Okay. Your first answer is 4 plus. Okay, that's where the 2 answers come from because you've got that plus and minus. So the first answer is going to be a plus. The second answer is going to be the minus. So 4 plus. This negative becomes I. It becomes your imaginary number. And then you keep the square root of 32 divided by 6. So that's one answer. They may have it together as 4 plus or minus. They may have it separate. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. So it's going to be the exact same thing, except this time we're subtracting.
So would that make the negative a positive? Wait, never mind.
No, because it becomes I.
Fine.
So you may see it written separately with a plus and a minus, or you may just see it written together. So you may see it like this as well. Whoops. I times the square root of 32 all over x. Okay. Please understand, it's separated and it all together is the same exact thing. I'm not sure what they're going to give you on your test, so I want you to be used to both. So that's the only thing you can do when your discriminant's a negative.
So we leave the answers as those 2, and then on the if it's a multiple choice question, we just choose the one that fits them.
So you may see like your choices are A, and they give you both selections for A. Okay. They can't give you the plus for A and the minus for B. They've got to give you both at the same time. Or, yeah, unless it says answers A and B. Okay. It has to be both. Okay. All right. Flip it over
Wait, what?
and let's do this one.
You supposed
I folded mine in half when I put it up here. If it's just open, you're just going to the right-hand side. Okay. So this time, do I need to do anything before I plug it in? No. What's my A value? 5. So all of my A's are going to be replaced with a 5. My B is -2. So all of my B values get replaced with a -2. And finally, my C value is -1. All my C values get replaced with a -1.
And your first B value turns to a positive.
Okay. So Rebecca says my -2 becomes a positive. Bless you. Plus or minus the square root. Get me a value that goes underneath that square root. Should be 24. And this time we're dividing by 10.
Okay, so I'm confused. Me, how do you get 24?
Yeah, how did you, I got that 8.
That's 16. I'm confused.
Well, I have a question.
So -2 squared is +4.
That's +4.
+4 times -4?
Yeah, I thought it was like -24.
It'll be -20. It'll be -16 +4.
Whoa. This is not being multiplied against the -4. That's minus. That's a subtraction.
I know.
Yeah.
So where are you getting 16 from?
-4 times 5 will be 20.
Right, times the -1 makes it a +20.
I still got 16.
And then 4
Square root.
gives you 24.
But it says
That is, I don't get it.
Yeah, no.
On here.
Okay, hold
I
on.
have a question. Okay, so there's a negative on that side. Wouldn't the number on that side be a negative? And the one on this side be a positive? Because it's a times -1.
Yeah, but you've got minus.
I got 44. But it should still, why? I'm saying, okay. So
Hold on.
-1 times 5.
Hold on.
Did you put the parentheses? And then -5 times 4.
I can't explain when you want to sit here and talk over me. Give me a minute to talk you through this. Okay. -2 squared is what? +4. So we've got +4. Okay. Minus 4 times 5 is 20 times -1 is -20. So minus -20.
But I thought it was already a negative.
A lot of people work.
Oh, so you already put the negative down for the -4.
So I already took the subtraction sign. So this becomes plus a positive, which makes it 24.
what am I doing wrong?
Oh,
I am still getting 16. Yes.
Put the parentheses with the negative.
Yes.
Miss Harvey, okay.
The square inside the parentheses instead of outside.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Anybody else having issues plugging this into the calculator that I can come fix? Look at. Okay. All right. So I can take the square roots of a positive number. If I have a positive discriminant, that means I have 2 real solutions. So my first one, again, is the positive version. So 2 plus the square root of 24 divided by 10. My second one is 2 minus the square root of 24 divided by 10. They may give you these as decimals.
Oh.
I can.
So you're going to have to plug it into your calculator. Okay, that's it. Plug it into your calculator. So I'm going to switch over to my, oops, I hit the wrong button. I'm going to switch over to my calculator here. Okay.
Those are the only two options with it, or will we get the plus or minus sign?
You could end up with a plus or minus sign. It all depends on whether they give you decimals or not. So let me pull up my calculator here. So when you plug this into the calculator, you need to put in the numerator and hit equals before you divide by 10. So your calculator knows I need to add before I divide. So I'm going to clear out my calculator first here. Oops. Okay. So you would plug in 2 plus. Your calculator can't do plus and minus at the same time, so you've got to plug it in separately. So 2 plus. Your square root is second and then your x squared button. Here you plug in 24 and you have to hit equals. Okay? And then you divide by 10. If you do not hit equals first, your calculator will go through and divide the square root before it adds 2. You can't let it do that. You've got to tell it. It's got to add first and then we divide. So please make sure you hit equals. Okay, so your first answer should be 0.69. 0.69. Okay, and again, you've got to go back and you've got to do that for the second one. So this time we've got second minus. And you plug in the square root. Here's 24. Again, hit equals first. And then we divide by 10. So this one is negative 0.29.
It would be 0.3.
Okay. It depends on how far they take it out and what answer choices they give you. Mostly they give you 2 decimal places. Okay. So I'm going to kind of try to stick with those.
How do you clear, like, capital letters?
Second plus 712s.
Did you have to memorize that?
What, second plus 712? You get used to it after you've just done it so many times that it just, it's one of those things like riding a bike. If you haven't done it for years, you can still get on a bike and figure it out. Okay, so what does this mean when you use the quadratic formula? This means that when I graph my quadratic, it's going to pass through the x at 0.69, so somewhere around there. And it's also going to cross at negative 0.29, so somewhere around here. And it's got a y-intercept at -1 because that's my c value. Okay, and it opens up because my a value is a positive. So my graph looks something like this.
Wait, how does it be at -1?
Your c value. Your c value is always where it crosses your y.
Oh, so we still graph our C value for that one?
You can.
Okay. Do we have to?
I'm more focused on you got the answers and those are where your graph crosses the x. Your answers that you get from the quadratic formula is where your graph crosses the x. These are those quadratic equations that can't be factored. Okay. So your quadratic formula tells you where it crosses your x. Okay. This one glues in on page 54.
You gotta use that 54 even with the staples.
It's just gluing over top of it.
That's so ugly.
You're not even going to see them then. We're covering them up.
Can I use me? Someone's knocking the door.
No. Cause it's not glue.
It's open.
It's open, come in.
It's open.
Come on, Slapper.
Recycling. It's right behind the door, sir. Thank you.
What if I use my glue? It's gonna look good.
It'll be fine.
It's smooth.
Okay. one. We're going to go to this one. Again.
Yeah, with the staples on.
Staples are underneath.
It's lumpy.
Oh my goodness. It's lumpy. It's better than looking at them.
And it's not gonna stay because you got staples. And the glue not gonna hold some staples.
Okay. So, again, this foldable has your quadratic formula again for you to reference. This time we're going to do it and I don't have the little squares to tell you where everything plugs in. Okay. You're not going to have that. So, we're going to first do the examples that go for 2 solutions. When I do that, my discriminant value should come out to be a what kind of number? Positive number. Anything above 0. I needed it this morning. All right. So my steps haven't changed. It's just this time I don't give you the pretty little thing to plug your numbers into. So my first step is to make sure my equation set equals to 0. Are we good? Yes. Now I need my A value, my B value, and my C value. What is A? 1. Okay. It's the number in front of x squared. What's my B value? -2. And what's my C value? -8. Okay. 1, -2, and -8. So my quadratic formula is negative. What goes first? B. Okay, so we plug in a -2. Plus or minus your square root. What's the first thing that goes under square root? B squared. Okay, so we plug in -2 squared minus 4AC. So we plug in the A, which is 1, and your C value, which is -8. And then you can take that and you can divide it by 2 times A. So we've got -2. Positive. Plus or minus. We need to get the number that goes underneath the square root. So you're going to plug into your calculator everything just under the square root. So for those of you that are struggling with this, let me do it on the calculator here. Okay, so you open your parentheses. We've got a -2 for B. We then square that value. Okay, so the -2 is in the parentheses. The square is outside of it. Minus 4. We're plugging in your 1 for A. And we're plugging in your -8 for C. Make sure you use the negative at the bottom and not a minus sign for 8, or else it'll give you an error. And when you hit enter, we get 36. Okay, this time we get 36. And we divide this answer by 2. So my discriminant comes out to be a positive number. It's 36. So that tells me I should have 2 answers. Okay, that's why we did that first. You should know what's coming next. So if I have a positive discriminant, I have 2 answers. I've got 2 plus the square root of 36 divided by 2. And 2 minus, good, the square root of 36 divided by 2. Muhammad just said 36, the square root of that is 6. Okay, so if you know that, you don't even need to plug this into the calculator. This is 2 plus 6, which is what? 8 divided by 2 is 4. So this answer is 4. On the other side, I've got 2 minus 6. Negative 4 divided by 2 is? Negative 2. So again, what you just found is your graph is going to cross the x at positive 4 and negative 2. And this one faces up because my a value is positive. So the quadratic formula, again, tells you where does it cross the x. All right. Let me move down to 2. Is it equal to 0?
Yes.
Yes, we're good. So I need A first. 3. I need B.
5.
And I need C.
-1.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've got negative. And we're plugging in?
3.
I
meant my bad.
5. Negative B. Plus or minus the square root. What comes first?
5.
5 squared minus 4 times?
3 times -4.
Fantastic. 4 times A times C. And that's all going to be over 2 times 3. Fantastic. 2 times A. The more you practice with it, the better off you are. The faster you memorize this formula, the better off you are. So everything you're going to learn throughout this unit is going to be ways to find your x-intercepts. So when we do completing the square and stuff, it's going to show you how to go into vertex form and find the x-intercepts from there. Okay. So here we've got negative 5 plus or minus the square root. You said that's 73?
Good job.
All over 6. Okay. Is 73 a perfect square?
No.
No. So this one we're going to actually have to plug into the calculator because it's going to come out to be a decimal. You're not going to get pretty numbers with this one. Okay, but we do know that we have 2 solutions. So I've got negative 5 plus the square root of 73, all divided by 6, and negative 5 minus the square root of 73, all divided by 6.
Would we since we're trying to find the square root of 73, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would we do like how we did divide it, like we did the first thing and then we divided by 10? Would we do that again?
Yes. So you're going to do negative 5 plus the square root of 73, hit equals. That way your calculator does the addition first.
Do we round?
And then divide it by 6. Round to 2 decimals.
Wait, negative 5 plus the square root?
So negative 5 plus the square root of 73. Here, I can do it on the calculator again. Make sure everybody's on the same page. So negative 5 plus the square root of 73. Again, you hit equals first, and then you divide that by 6. So 0.59 is the first one. Okay, so who wants a fast trick?
Hey.
Okay, so instead of going back and plugging in negative 5 minus, I want you to hit second enter and then second enter again. Look what pops up.
What?
Or you can press up twice and it equals.
Whoa.
Okay, so now all you have to do is scroll over to the plus sign and change it to a minus.
Oh my goodness.
That is lazy. Now that's just extra.
That's the way to do that. Is you just scroll up to the thing. Like you just press up.
Negative 13.
Clicking around it.
Wait, no.
I didn't know that worked.
What?
Divide by 6.
Don't forget to divide it by 6 though.
So what it say? Negative 2.25.
So negative 2.26.
Oh.
Negative 2.26.
We're always rounding it.
Yes. Okay, so again, this means my graph crosses at 0.59 and negative 2.26, so somewhere here. Okay. Questions? Okay, we're going to go to what? Do you need it up still? Okay, we're going to go to the other side. Number 3. Number 3. So, is it equal to 0?
Yeah.
Yes. What's A?
1,
What's B?
6,
What's C?
9.
Fantastic. So, I've got negative. Over on the board if you need to know what letters go.
6.
6. We start with the 6. Plus or minus the square root. 6 squared. Minus 4. Guys, stop talking and pay attention.
0.
1 and 9.
It's the square root.
Is there a reason you're not writing anything back there and you're just staring off into space? Come on. Come on. All over 2 times 1.
Why did it? Wait,
Okay, so we go negative 6 and then plus or minus the square root. Jalecia said, Miss Smith, why does this equal 0? And that's all over 2. What does it mean when my discriminant equals 0? One solution. One solution. Because what's the square root of 0? 0. So, if I would try to split this into 2, we would get negative 6 plus 0 divided by 2 and negative 6 minus 0 divided by 2. It's just negative 6 divided by 2. So when you separate it, Justin said they're the same answer. Okay, so that's why there's only one solution, because when you add 0 or subtract 0, it doesn't change anything. So we have one solution at negative 3. So my graph only crosses the x at negative 3, and it looks like this. So negative 3, comma 0 is your vertex. Whenever you have one solution, that means your vertex is what touches the x-axis. Okay. So when you have one solution, your graph should look something like this. Okay. If we drop below, is this equal to 0? Yes. So A is 2, B is negative 3, and C is positive 5. So we've got negative 3, plus or minus the square root. Negative 3 squared, good, minus 4, 2, and 5. All over 2 times 2. Okay, so it's going to be all over 4. And that negative out front becomes a positive. Oh. Yes, Kate. Yes, ma'am.
That equals negative 31.
Okay, Jalecia said that equals negative 31. And we already know because somebody said that is 4 in the bottom. I believe it was Rebecca. Okay. I'm getting pretty good at recognizing voices behind me. Okay, so we've got a negative discriminant, which means what?
Imaginary.
They're imaginary solutions. There's no real ones. Okay, so we have two solutions, but they're both imaginary. I've got 3 plus. That negative, again, becomes my imaginary I times the square root of 31 over 4. And I have 3 minus. That negative, again, becomes the imaginary I times the square root of 31 over 4.
Why did you put positive 31?
Because when you bring the negative out, the negative becomes your I.
Oh,
So your negative is replaced with I.
so that number. So if it's a positive number, oh no, that won't work because that would be too. Ah.
Lydia, do you have a question or instruction?
I'm sure.
Okay.
It's Friday. I don't think
Let's be good, let's go.
Right.
We glue this on page 55.
So your graph for this one, I don't remember what side it's on. Let me graph it on your calculator real fast because I don't remember what side it's on. So 2x squared minus 3x plus 5. So, do you see when you graph this one? It doesn't touch the x-axis. Okay, that's why you have no real solutions. Okay, so your graph should look something like this then. Okay. This is going to glue in on page 55. You can glue it in sideways because it's not going to fit across. Okay, what I want you to do right now in class, work on that last foldable. There's 3 of them. Okay, check off of each other as you're working, and then we'll go over them. Okay, so you're working on this one.
So is this
Yeah, that folds down. This also folds down. So you've got. The last one or the one we just did? The last one goes in on 56.
Okay.
So that folds down and that folds up and it'll go in sideways like that.
the glue will be
Yep.
here?
Yep.
So
You got it, Fred.
sideways. Oh, sideways.
So yeah, just glue it in sideways because it's not going to fit that way. Yeah,
So it doesn't have to be like crumpled.
right.
We put it in.
Exactly.
I did that when I was in 7th grade.
What, crumpled it?
Yeah, my notebook was like the
It's
same.
been-
I'm like,
There's nothing to do on the last one.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not good at organizing my notebook. But my phone is like the same.
What do you mean everything's done?
If it's-
This thing's just.
Freaking kidding, I need a copy of it.
Okay. Pass those little down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh,
Ah.
party fail. I put it in wrong. I made copies of the answer key.
This is why teachers should not have answer keys.